This is the world's first one-way mosquito trap that requires no power, no chemicals, poison, and it's up to 98% effective. I've tested it, and several of these bottles have caught the mosquitoes and have had the larvae in it. So it is effective, and it's very similar to the OV traps that are out. A new one was by a Canadian group that did tires. They just had water in a tire, and then they caught the larvae and killed them. My concept is why not allow it to fly in but not get out? Whereas theirs, the mosquito still flies out, and if it bites you, it can pass on diseases. My website is mosquitoswithoutborders.com, and I have more information there. And feel free to send me an email and give me updates on what you did. Here's my location. And here's some of the supplies you're going to need: a hot glue gun, screening material, some tube, some vent pipes. And here's a recent one, my most recent one. You really can't see the mosquito larvae in there, but there's about 20 to 30 of them in there. And this was my recent one. I've duplicated it on a couple, but you can see the screen where the mosquito enters in there. And it can't get out because of the bend in the tubing. I will show you how to make that bend right now. Basically, you need some wood 1/4 inch curves that you can buy at any hardware store, or you could take a piece of wood and carve it out and be a round. And then let me see if we can see the mosquito larvae a little better. Nope. Yep, there's a couple. You can see them. You'll see them a little bit further in the video too. And there's the entrance right there for the mosquitoes. You can't see it, but up at the very top of that is the hole. And here from the back, it's kind of a ramp that goes up, and then you can see the little bit of space. It's about 3 millimeters in width at the very back curve. And the mosquito will fly in, crawl through there. It obviously is attracted to water. I used rainwater. Don't use any type of chlorinated water. And here's the fixture I made for doing it. I bought these pieces. I broke them and then glued them together. They're curves, and you end up with a half one like this. Once you have that, you take the screen. Any type of aluminum screen should work for good, or aluminum is best because it is in a high moisture area. I wrapped it with wax paper. There's some hot glue that I have. So I wrapped one side with wax paper because the hot glue would stick to the wood. Wrap it around, then set it on top of the screen. Then start bending the screen over, just like a quarter of it around the first curve, and then start rolling it. And as you roll it, keep it taut. Once you have that first half, add the second half, and then continue rolling, and keep again keeping it kind of taut. Keep a little bit of down pressure on there to keep the screen around it, and keep winding it until you actually get about 1.5 complete winds. Then you take the hot glue, and then I just kind of tack it in a couple different spots, but you don't want to do the outer 1 inch of those. You want to keep it more to the center. You'll hot glue the outer part later. Let it cool off. Give it a second or two. Just keep holding it while it cools. You're just tacking it, and then once it's cool, come in and put a bead all the way across where the surface is, the very initial bend and your outside meet. And you kind of make a so you've got a full circle. Next, you just cut off this. Oh, yeah, on the other side, you need to seal that too. So you have to have a bead. And again, you're only sealing the bead part where you have the wax paper underneath, because otherwise you can't pull them apart. So you're sealing that entire side across. Once you have that all sealed and let it cool, then your next step will be to remove the wax paper. And removing the wax paper requires you to pull one side almost completely out. You don't want to pull it completely out, but first cut off the excess material. Once you have the excess material, then you'll start working on pulling the wax paper out. Okay, so that one slide's fine because you didn't get any hot glue on that piece. And then the wax paper part, you can start pulling some of the wax paper out. Slide that side almost completely out, and then start pulling that wax paper out. Once you get the wax paper out, and then you pull the two rods out completely. And then I'll show you what you do next. I'm working it with just a long skewer, wooden skewer, to get the rest of that wax paper out. So once you have it, then you have a nice round tube there with a middle section. Now you compress that middle section, and you're going to smash it down to make a little bit of a gap at the very bottom that you can see. That gap should be about 3 millimeters. Yeah, that's where you allow the mosquito to escape from that 3 millimeter gap right there on that side. So next, what you need to do is hot glue it right in the middle to keep it at 3 millimeters. And then turn it around, and you're going to do the same thing on the other side. Again, smash it down, and you're creating a ramp as you do that. But you don't close it off completely. You leave it pretty much 3 millimeters the whole way. And again, you hot glue this right, just a little bead right in the middle to keep it locked into that 3 millimeter position. Let it cool off. Give it a second or two. Then next, what you're going to do is just cut this in half, because now you actually have two pieces. And once you cut it in half, you kind of squeeze it where you did the cut to make it round again. And you also have to kind of squeeze the bottom part. It'll separate a little bit so that there's no gap where the mosquito could fly out from the bottom portion. Takes a little bit of tweaking it. But there you go. Now you've got one trap done. And you can see on the other side there's 3 millimeter gap. So now on this side you're going to just cut little flange strips here, and then you'll bend these back. Okay, once all those are bent back, then you take the Coke bottle, the 3-liter Coke bottle, and I didn't bend these back enough. You really need to bend them a little bit further back. But you can see what I did on the other bottle. Now here's a 3-liter Coke bottle. I'll be inserting that in, so I'm resting it on there, and I'm going to mark it with a Sharpie. Whoops, I'm a little bit out of the screen, but you can see I'm marking where I'm going to be making my hole. So I'm doing it by the diameter of the actual tube. Sorry about being off screen there. Draw my circle to complete those spots. Now I'm going to smash it where the two sides are together. So it's a half circle, and then I'm going to, with a pair of scissors, just cut that half circle out. It doesn't need to be precise, just close enough. You know, basically do it a little bit undersized initially, and then you can come in and cut a little more material away. So now I'm going to check the fit. It's a little bit tight, so open it up a little bit more. And there it was large enough. Now I'm putting the tube in, and you want the ramp to go in where the mosquito escapes at the very top. So as you look in there, the mosquito, the slot is at the very top of the bottle. And so right now I'm going to tack it in, and that's where I said I should have bent these a little bit more. They're sticking out a little bit too far. Just tack it in a little bit and then let that cool off, and then you can put a little more pressure on the other ones once it's cooled off. And you have to do a pretty good job of sealing this, because you don't want the mosquito being able to escape through any of the cracks right where the screen meets the bottle. Takes a little bit of time for it to cool. Okay, cooled off. Now I'm going to add more material to seal any gaps right around the edge there, because we cannot have any gaps whatsoever. Okay, now you can see I've basically really sealed it off, and also in the back there you could see the little gap where the ramp comes in, and the mosquito flies in, then he crawls through the very back, and he's caught. And now if he tries to fly in from the back side, he just the ramp is the opposite direction, so he can't figure out where the little slot is. Actually, it's a she. So then same thing can be applied for vents, for house vents and or septic vents. You need to take a T-tube that you would put on top, and then you put the traps, same type of traps, just a little bit shorter, right into each one of those tubes, and then you would either put a screen shield around it or just hot glue that right into the tube. And then you can also do it for a larger one, but here's a screen shield, so you could cut a hole in a piece of screen and then hot glue it on. And here's for a larger septic system tube or house vent. You can wire on a piece of screen right there, cut a hole in the center, and then same thing, and push it in to taper it, so it's going in at like an angle, and then push in one of your traps, and then hot glue seal that trap in the same way. So that way the mosquito will fly in from either side. You have to do it to both sides on the T. They enter in, they go into the septic system, they lay their eggs, and then when they try and fly out, they can't get out. And that's how you basically make these one-way traps. And I've tested it, and at least 98% can't get away. And here's a little better look at some of the larvae there. You can see the larvae kind of swimming around there. What you do is you would empty this out and throw this away. And then once you see larvae